With everything that has happened in 2021, many folks are asking, hey, did the cost of living increase in Fort Lauderdale in 2022? And do we expect it to continue? If this is a question you have, stick around and we'll get the answer. So, hi, I'm Kev. Welcome to our channel, Living in Fort Lauderdale with Kev and Suze. If this is your first time to the channel visiting, welcome. If you visited us before, welcome back. We hope you'll consider subscribing to our channel to help it grow. I mean, after all, it is the cool thing to do. To kind of get us started on this, basically, what is a cost of living or the cost of living index and kind of how is it used? So in the simplest terms, a cost of living or COL index is the estimated amount of cost of the basic necessities required for folks to live. A cost of living estimate may include typically estimates for housing, food, energy, medical care, transportation, taxes, and other necessities. And it's really kind of used to look at the difference between if you're living in one area and you're considering relocating or moving to another area to kind of get an idea as to, is it going to cost you more? Is it going to cost you less? What are some of the factors to be considered when you're looking to make that change? So it really helps to kind of define whether or not this is something that you can do, even if it is something that you want to do. So we're going to go ahead and give you some information on that. Thanks to our friends at salary.com, niche.com, livingcost.org, and numbeo.com. Those are kind of our sources where we go back to get the information that we're providing. To answer the question, basically, yeah, the cost of living in Fort Lauderdale has gone up a little bit. It's up about 2.9 or 3% from a year ago. It still makes it about 11 or 12% higher than a national average, with the largest increases were found in transportation, food, and housing. So for kind of comparison purposes, we're going to be using Fort Lauderdale, which is where we live. We're going to be looking at Florida and Miami, all against a national average. So national average being 100, and Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Miami being either above or below that at any point. So let's kind of start with the most significant increase. It's a housing cost. The housing cost in Fort Lauderdale has gone up. It's about 28% above the national average. It's about 25% higher than Florida, but it's about 5% lower than Miami. So Miami is still kind of leading the charge here in South Florida as far as the cost of housing. They kind of relate it to the cost of homes. The median home cost in Fort Lauderdale has gone up from $341,000 in 2021 to an estimated $395,000 in 2022. The national average is about $235,000 to $240,000 in 2022, up from $229,000 in 2021. And Florida is at a roughly $237,000 versus $225,000 in 2021. Miami is still kind of in there at $405,000. So and a lot of that is all based upon when things close and everything else. So those numbers are actually kind of fluid. It should be noted that the higher cost of housing is mainly due to Florida generally, and Fort Lauderdale and Miami more specifically being a popular destination for celebrities, retirees, and families kind of looking to chasing the warmth and the sunshine. And it does lend to an artificially increase in the demand for cost housing. The housing market does remain a strong seller market, but it's expected to move towards a more balanced market as soon as Q3 or Q4 of 2022, and hopefully even more so into 2023. Grocery and food costs are also higher. It's about 7% higher than a national average here in Fort Lauderdale. It's 3% higher than the overall state of Florida, but it's still a little bit lower than in Miami itself. So again, Miami is still kind of winning the race here. So a lot of this though comes with a little bit of a caveat. It's perceived that a lot of this is because of the recent health crisis that's been going on. More folks have a tendency to basically shop more and eat out less. There are fewer places available to eat out, and they do have much more restricted menus. Hopefully this will kind of moderate, and this will also kind of change as we get back to some some more degrees of normalcy going into 2022 and then hopefully to 2023. But the state of Florida and South Florida are very, very much highway driven and road driven areas for transportation. So, and what that does is actually because you're driving a lot more, okay, and there's not a whole lot of public transportation here in South Florida. I mean, there is the Broward bus system and there's the Tri-Rail and stuff like that. But a lot of folks get around either via Uber or they get around driving themselves. And also you got to factor in parking, and parking down here, especially in the beach areas, it is not cheap. And if you want to check out some of our other videos in Deerfield Beach, Pompano Beach, you'll see that some of the pricing for parking can be upwards of $30 a day. So it is a little bit more expensive than a national average by about 10% for transportation. The state average of Florida by about 9%. But again, it's still lower than being in Miami. Miami having some very, very high areas of transportation costs, especially down towards South Beach where parking can be as much as $50 a day. So it is a little bit higher than that. The other thing is that you probably look at it from the standpoint too of the price of gas is a lot higher now than it was a year ago. Basically, we're paying about $1.23 more a gallon than we did this time last year. So it has gone up a little bit. And part of that is due to the actual reduction in crude oil production. And it's also down that Florida has one of the higher tax rates on gasoline in the country. So kind of on a good side is basically you start looking at some of the other costs, healthcare costs and the cost of kind of maintaining your health and everything else are lower. And part of that is because Fort Lauderdale and its surrounding areas, it's virtually a year-round city. So Fort Lauderdale is about 3% less than the national average as far as healthcare costs. It's 2% less than Florida overall because you do have a diversity of climates in Florida itself, and it's 2% less than Miami, where it still is a little bit higher there. Utility costs are also another area where South Florida is lower than the national average. It's by about 4%, and it's lower than Florida overall by about 5%, and it pretty much runs about the same with Miami. Everything's going on. But if you kind of think about it from this perspective of, well, here in Fort Lauderdale, we get about 250 days a year of sunshine, and the average temperature is between 65 and 85 degrees pretty much year round. So you depend upon your AC in the summertime, and you're kind of sitting back enjoying the cool breezes in the fall and the winter time and the early springtime. So it kind of makes for you don't have the temperature extremes, either the significant cold like you have up in the northern states, and you don't also have the very significant heat like you have in some of the southwestern states and also some of the northern states. Being from Georgia, I can remember times when coming out of the building in downtown Atlanta, because it's all concrete and asphalt, you'd come out and just a walk from the building to your car, and maybe a 2 or 3 minute walk, come out and you're just saturated in the summertime because it was so warm, so hot in the summertime. And then also for those of you who may remember Snowmageddon back in 2016, where basically the city of Atlanta shut down because we had a lot of snow, and then it didn't get any warmer, it froze. So yeah, so we don't have those kind of temperature variants that places in around the country have. So the other thing is that basically you look at it from the standpoint of kind of miscellaneous costs, kind of clothing, restaurants, repairs, entertainment, kind of other services, and it's still pretty much on line with everything else. It's about 3% higher than the national average. It is a lot higher than the state of Florida overall, because there are some areas in Florida that are very, very much more cost effective, going up maybe towards the Panhandle, or you're going out and looking in Central Florida. They're not quite as expensive from the standpoint of some of those tangible costs like clothing and restaurant repairs. Entertainment down here is a little bit more expensive, but it's not nearly as expensive as Miami, so it's about 2 or 3% cheaper than Miami. What we're kind of seeing overall is basically that Fort Lauderdale, it's not the cheapest place to live in. On the other hand, it's not the most expensive place either. So it's about 16% higher than the national average. It's about 11% overall higher than Florida, but it's still about 5% cheaper than Miami. So to kind of use as a barometer, if you will, or a marker, a family of four's estimated monthly costs outside of housing are about $3,600. A single person's estimated cost without housing, without rent, or without your housing payment is going to be about $1,020, $1,025 a month. So, but on the other hand, okay, Fort Lauderdale is about 23% less expensive than other areas such as New York, and 26% less expensive than California, which are two of the areas where we're seeing probably the most significant amount of folks coming to live from there down here into South Florida and into Fort Lauderdale as a whole. It is kind of relative. It is a little bit more expensive, but we're still seeing a lot of things that still make it a very, very viable area to live. For example, okay, and this is something that we brought up before and something we'll continue to discuss, is Florida doesn't have any state income tax. Yeah, it has a little bit higher sales tax in some of the areas, but for those of us that have moved down here and whatnot, you're not paying state income tax anymore. So, for Susan and I, it was kind of like, oh wow, we're getting a pay increase because we're not paying for the state income tax, and that over time can become very, very significant. So, if there's something else that you'd like to know more about, please feel free to drop us a note in the comments below. We hope you'll consider subscribing if you found some information in here that is of value or something that you've found interest in. And hopefully you'll check out some of our other videos on Fort Lauderdale and the surrounding areas. So thanks and take care.